Claire turned 54 this past March. She came on a Saturday, brought food she'd cooked herself, sat in this kitchen for most of the afternoon. We talked more easily than we used to. Something between us loosened after Maggie passed. Not immediately, but gradually, the way ice goes in early spring. I watched her move around this kitchen, and I kept thinking, when did she become this person? This capable, warm, complete person? When did that happen, and where was I when it did? I know where I was, that's the trouble. She was 7 when I started staying late most evenings. Curriculum changes, department meetings, things that felt genuinely urgent at the time. I'd come home after she was in bed, kiss her forehead in the dark, which she didn't know about, and I told myself counted for something. I told myself a lot of things counted that didn't. There was a school play when she was 9, spring production. She had a small part, 3 or 4 lines. I remember Maggie mentioning it for weeks. I planned to go. Something came up the afternoon of a parent meeting that ran long, a situation with a student that needed handling. I sent Maggie with a note for Claire that said I was proud of her. She kept that note. I found it in a box in her old bedroom years later when we were clearing things out. Folded small, edges soft from being handled. A note. That's what I sent instead of myself. The years of her childhood blur together now, the way years do when you weren't paying close enough attention to them. I remember fragments. Claire at the kitchen table doing homework. Claire in the yard with the neighbor children laughing at something I wasn't part of. Claire asking me questions I answered briefly because I had something else to finish first. Always something else to finish first. Maggie raised her, essentially. Not alone. I was in the house. I was present in the minimal sense. But the texture of Claire's childhood, the daily fabric of it, that was Maggie. The conversations about school and friendships and the things that worried her, the Saturday mornings, the ordinary, unremarkable time that turns out to be the most important time. I missed most of it waiting for a version of life that felt more settled, more arrived. I had this persistent sense that real life, the fuller, more present version, was just ahead. Once the school year ended, once the budget was sorted, once things quieted down enough to deserve the attention I was saving up, things never quieted down that way. They just kept being life, ordinary and continuous, and I kept treating it like a waiting room. Claire was in that waiting room for 18 years, and I barely looked up from my papers. What I regret most isn't the school play or the evenings I missed specifically. It's the cumulative texture of it, the 1,000 small moments where she might have brought something to me, a worry, a question, something funny that happened, something that confused her, and learned instead to take those things to Maggie. Learned that her father was available for practical things, reliable for certain kinds of help, but not quite reachable for the rest. She learned to need me in a limited way. I taught her that. patiently, consistently, without meaning to, over 18 years. There was a Sunday when she was maybe 12. I was at my desk and she came and stood in the doorway for a moment, didn't say anything. I asked her what she needed and she said nothing, never mind, and left. I went back to what I was doing. I thought about that Sunday more than she probably remembers it, what she might have been about to say, whether something was wrong that she decided not to bring to me, whether she stood there for a moment, hoping I'd put the pen down and ask a real question, and I didn't, and she filed that away somewhere and adjusted her expectations accordingly. Children are very efficient at adjusting their expectations. She's 54 now, and she comes twice a month, and we talk genuinely, more than we ever did when she was young. That's something I'm grateful for, the chance to know her as an adult in a way I didn't earn by knowing her as a child. She gives me that without making me feel it's conditional. She's more generous than I deserve. Maggie raised a generous person. I'm glad one of us was paying attention. I don't know how to hold what I missed. There's no recovering it. She had one childhood, and I was adjacent to it, passing through, always just about to be more present once things settled. They settled. She grew up. The window closed the way windows do, not with a sound, just gone one day when you reach for it. I reach for it sometimes still, in the way old men reach for things, not expecting to find them, just unable to entirely stop trying.